Hello there. It's 7 o'clock UK time on a Thursday, and that means, Mitchell, it's
This is it.
yeah, it's indeed. This is it, and wow, it's great. Now, um, welcome to all our LinkedIn viewers, new LinkedIn viewers. We finally, after 8 months, got the okay to broadcast live to LinkedIn. So that means, Mitchell, we're on basically all the main social media. So we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Oh yeah, YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram, because they don't allow us to kind of feed in. We're not on
you're not
Instagram,
allowed to.
but that's great. So one missing tonight, Inessa.
Yes, Inessa's filming, and is unable to obviously hook up with us because obviously closed sets. So very difficult.
See, that's the downside. There's an upside to having an amazing actress on our show, and there's also is that she's off working, right? And that's what when you're working, you're working. Anyway, see you back here in about half a minute. So once again, welcome to This Is It. And it's wonderful to welcome everybody in from all the different social media channels that are watching this. And tonight we're talking about the social agenda. So, are we being manipulated? And I suppose it was a little bit of a sneaky move, a little manipulation to have that title, because I think in this era that we're in, it kind of triggers a certain subject, I think, in people's minds when they're talking about the social agenda. But this is a question that's been going on, I think, for a long time, and not just 2020.
No, I mean, it's funny because there was talk, and they were saying that I think it was 2010, 2011. They were noticing shifts and change in young people, regards to the social networking, social platforms, and how that was having an actual impact.
Yeah.
And what they were aware of, and I think it's the United States, to my knowledge, I think there was an increase of 150% in like depression and things like that and stuff like that in young, and we're talking under the age of 11 as well, young people.
Because of what?
Well, because the whole thing, especially with social media, is a lot of people, kids, it can be a platform where people bully, but it's also about likes. And what they were noticing was that if someone posts something, they're waiting for likes. So it's also feeding in to their feel-good chemicals. It's that, it's a way of making you feel good. I get a like. So the more you get a like, the more you're apt to post. The more you post, the more you get likes. And so goes the transition. Then you get to a point where, let's say, a friend of yours has, let's say, I don't know, say 200 followers, and you want to match that. So it just continually grows and continually grows. And then from that, then obviously the people running the platforms suddenly realized, actually, we can use this in a very, very special way. We can actually advertise, follow what people read, what they like, what they dislike, and then get more of an idea of how we work as an individual, get into our psyche. And that's the kind of research and the things they've realized recently. And that's from people who actually worked within organizations who have actually spilling the beans on that.
So it reminds me of something that happened to me today. I was out with friends in the morning, with their dog trainer, right?
Okay.
And they have working dogs, so they're not just pets. So the training is very specialized. And I'm watching the trainer, and it was very fascinating for me because, and I said it to the trainer, I said, wow, this is B.F. Skinner, that famous behavioral psychologist coming to life before my eyes, because although we use it a lot in behavioral psychology, it doesn't always work as fast as you see it working in animals. And basically, it was taking your likes. Your likes in Facebook for a dog is getting a little a morsel of food, right? So it does something that the trainer wants, gets a tiny little morsel of food, and it can be just a slight thing to begin with. Animals are not trained overnight. It's very, very subtle, and it's getting a like. A little bit of food, boom. A little bit of food, boom. Oh, you did well. And then he was explaining that the dog actually, just like in humans, gets a good feeling, gets a feel-good factor. And that feel-good factor drives his or hers behavior. And that's kind of what you were talking about when you were just saying about the likes in Facebook. And the problem is when you don't get the likes.
Well, that's the flip side. That's the flip side of most things, because then, but even if it's just not the likes, someone can make a comment, just a comment, and that could be, let's say, I think there was the way it was worked. There was a young girl posting, and she's doing all these little pictures of herself, and someone said, "Oh, post some more of your big ears," and just that one comment was the one part that stuck with her.
Yeah.
And not just that moment, it stuck with her. She was very young, it stuck with her, and then that progressed, and that led her then to start feeling insecure about herself. There was just a knock-on effect. And I think that's the dangers of, the whole sort of, I'd say, social networking side of things.
Did you see that movie they made about all this? I think it was on Netflix or something like that. Did you see? I can't remember the name of the documentary.
The social dilemma. Social dilemma.
Did you see the social dilemma?
Yeah, that's and right. That was. So I'd say what's really interesting. I've got to say one thing. Do you know what's really interesting about that? The people who were talking on that show were people that were at the forefront of initiating how to make money for everyone within this, and also how to move things forward. And what was really interesting, what I found so interesting, was a lot of them don't allow their children to use social media.
Yeah.
Because they realized how damaging it is, and and I found that just so interesting.
You know what really got me in that movie or that documentary? That obviously, but what really, really got me was I'm watching this. I'm learning that I'm being deliberately manipulated. Deliberately. I mean, these guys are, it's almost like a confession, isn't it? So they're basically confessing that they were part of all this whole structure. They've left now, a lot of them, but they were basically saying that we've designed an addictive machine, and I'm sitting there knowing that I'm part of this and not getting out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing myself on my smartphone as I'm watching, checking my stuff like I do, right? It's very seldom that I'll watch one screen without doing something with another screen. I mean, I've even got another screen there. It's peeping at me all the time.
Join the club. I've got another one just there.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've got a massive screen right here too. I mean, like, I'm surrounded at the moment by 4 screens. So the one we're talking to now, this little screen here, I've got like a 50-inch right here, and I've got my laptop over there. So I'm surrounded by 4 screens, right? Which when you think of, and I'm working with you, right? So this is my presence is with you on This Is It. But at the same time, there's a little split here, because I know every time there's a peep that goes on here, I'm thinking to myself, do I wait until Mitchell's kind of speaking and then maybe I can get a quick look at what's going on? Now, I've seen people in the BBC News and the ITV News, and they've got stuff going on. They've got other screens, and they're getting peeps, and they're getting this, and they're getting that. It's the way that we live right now. But when you saw that Netflix documentary, is that we are not necessarily choosing it out of freedom of choice. We're being manipulated. We're being channeled to work like this.
And the other thing that when they were talking about the algorithms, and they were saying that actually the things that you see aren't when they're first posted, they're what they want you to see after following you, studying what you see, what you like, what you do, and then they'll feed into things that they think that will get your interest. And then if you haven't looked at something for long enough, they'll flick in something else, because apparently when the algorithm starts, the AI then takes it off on its own tangent. It then learns. It's learning all the time, consistently learning. And with that learning, it's then getting into your psyche, understanding you in a way that you don't even realize this has happened.
So they're an individual.
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's frightening.
Yeah.
See, the traditional way, like if you go on and do a little bit of research, the traditional thing says, yeah, we've been getting manipulated maybe since day one, but the average person is seeing like 10,000 adverts a day, right? I mean, we're seeing so many adverts, we don't even realize that we're seeing adverts. If I was to ask you or anybody else, how many adverts have you seen today? You know, if I was asked that, I'd probably say, well, don't remember a lot, but maybe 5 or 10, right? But adverts are not just these short little programs between television programs. Adverts are even when you've got, you know, a brand name on a T-shirt, or you're wearing a, you know, oh, there you've got a pair of Adidas, you know, trainers on. That's an advert, right? So when you take into consideration all the adverts we're getting 10,000 adverts a day. But unlike what you just said, these are not directed to us individually. These are either we like it or we don't like it, or we pass it or we see it or we don't. But what you're talking about is even more dangerous in a way, because they're learning our behavior. And not just that, they're re-triggering our behavior if we're not doing what they want.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but like even if I'm in a meeting, if I go to a meeting, or even if I've gone to a restaurant or a gathering in the past, obviously not now because of our situation, but it's quite funny if you go to a meeting. I mean, certain meetings they'll just say phones off, but otherwise people are just all the time. Or if you're in a restaurant talking to someone, oh, hold on 1 second, I just got to get this. And the other thing that I feel is happening is we're not communicating as individuals, like face to face, having a conversation. We're living in a virtual. The conversations we have are through Messenger, Twitter, WhatsApp, normal messages, Instagram, Facebook. That's our communication. That's the scary thing.
A lot of room for mistakes, aren't there?
Yeah, of course.
I've got to ask you a question, because let's be fair, okay? Because we're knocking social media, we're knocking advertising.
No,
you know, we kind of hinted at the beginning about, you know, 2020, and we're deliberately kind of staying off that just now because, you know, there's a lot more regarding manipulation of the human being apart from conspiracy theories. But let me ask you, to be honest, do you manipulate your surroundings?
Gosh. Probably there must be part that there must without not I'm not consciously aware, like right, but then I guess of course I must do at times. All of us
And
must do at times.
anything like with you, your relationships, whatever relationships, whether it's intimate, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, whatever. Do you ever try to steer the agenda, if you like, in your interest? Whether it's going to the restaurant that you want, going to see the movie that you want,
No,
going,
no,
you know,
no. That I'm not. That, no, definitely. No, I don't. I can definitely, hand on heart, say no. That doesn't interest me. The only thing I might steer people in
yeah,
is with things like in regards to exercise, or if I'm aware of, let's say, a new product, I might just say to people, "Oh, I've tried this." I might steer people in that direction, but that's because I feel, and then I could, again, it's still manipulating. I feel it's okay, or I think it's working. So then I've decided, actually, I want to share that with someone, more for the fact that I'd like them to get the same benefits, I guess. The same as if I've done a workout program that I felt gave me really good results, then I would share that with other people I know train.
So there's manipulation, which
Yeah.
seems to have a bit of a bad press around it. Let's talk about that. But there's also the word influence. Are they the same or are they different? Because even as we speak now, or part of my values, if you like, in certain things, are to influence others to live a healthier, useful life, not necessarily the way I would want to use it, but to help them and influence them to do that for themselves. That's something that I want to give to the world, is to help influence people to live higher quality lives. But is that also a manipulation? I don't know.
Well, again, I think that, I guess really it's whether something's doing. I don't know, because I'm thinking if something's harming others, is it intentional? Am I, is it intentionally there to harm someone? Then I would, I think it's just difficult, because if you're thinking of it like that, you can look at certain aspects of social media that are really beneficial. It's People have found lost family members, or they can communicate. Whereas before you just use in the old, I'm showing my age, just the phone that way. But
Yeah.
now you can look, talk, visual. Imagine if there was, for instance, if we didn't have social media now, and we're in this lockdown, so to speak.
Right.
That would mean then, well, from my perspective, when I'm talking to in other work I've done, I'm sure with the same with yourself, Dove, you wouldn't be able to talk to people, see how they're doing, how they're managing, especially people that are unwell and stuff like that. So that would pose difficulties. So again, there's positives, but I guess it's about. I think the thing that came out from me when I watched this program was regulation. There's no regulators to regulate things.
Yeah, there's no regulators
to monitor.
Yeah, and that's getting good on bad. I think it's getting a little bit away from the manipulation side, but I suppose it isn't. When there's no regulators, these big media companies, if you like, can get away with doing things that they feel in their agenda is worth manipulating the system for, right? So, for instance, what comes to mind is that there are certain things on what originally was a free for all, free speech internet. That's the way it came out, maybe 25 years ago or so. Now we're finding a lot of censorship by social media companies, whatever reason and whatever is being censored. The point is, if there's censorship at all, it means that one day maybe they don't like This Is It, and This Is It becomes censored and taken off, right? And all our millions of viewers will miss our next episode because we've been banned. But the question is, that's a manipulation, because now you are limiting, censoring the amount of information in the public square.
But then you could then take that a little bit further and look at fake news.
Well, I personally have a problem with any news now because I'm not quite sure whether it's fake or not. And I'm talking about whether we're
Generally.
talking about government, whether we're talking about, um, established media companies like the BBC or ITV or Channel 4 or whatever, or whether we're talking about newspapers. There's an article that came out today on the news that was talking about, I don't know all the details, but I think it was about a baby that died somehow.
Okay.
And they've just come out now with information saying that there was a cover up by authorities. So it's not conspiracies here. We're talking about situations where not all the information gets released for whatever reason. I'm not going to criticize it one way or the other because I don't know all the details. But it means that if there's an editor, then an editor is cherry picking what they want to release into the world and what not. Now, on one hand, I think an editor is extremely important these days because if you get a trustworthy editor, they're basically sieving through the stuff and you would hope checking that it's genuine and real. But I'm not quite sure that's happening now because I think people want to sell newspapers. I think people want ratings on TV programs. I think that the money is maybe talking a little bit more than the truth.
So then, would that well? Let's look at another aspect. When you're talking about, I guess we'd go for America for this, the voting system, the influence in this. Is that being influenced? And and there's been a lot of talk around that recently. Huge amounts of talk around that about what's shown, what's not shown. They've even suggested that they feel that if things don't change, the thing that we're heading towards that they think might happen is a civil war, due to the fact of the media that's shown, put out. People won't talk to someone because they voted for this person. That it's because of there's just so much stuff being manipulated.
Yeah, and the thing is this is where it gets a little bit scary for me, because the written word, ever since the printing machine was invented, I don't know exact year, but we're talking about a few hundred years ago. People believe the written word. Okay, so if you give somebody a business card, the human psyche automatically accepts that what you've printed on that business card is true. And it's very seldom they'll question it. Okay? Then, if you expand on that and you get into social media, okay, which is like the modern day digital word, but more with pictures and with evidence and with all graphics and everything. If you're plugging out to somebody a message and you manage to dominate that airtime, if you like, or social media time with your message. So if a message comes out that, Dov's a bad guy, Dov's a bad guy, Dov's a bad guy, and Mitchell's a great guy, and you've managed to manipulate that, then the chances are the viewer is going to believe this, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
That's what they found out in with that Facebook, that whole scandal, where the first election in the United States with Trump, when they found out that in Cambridge, I think it was, here in the UK, there was there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of new intelligence about what to, just like you said when you started tonight, was what can we send people that are vulnerable for new information. So if I send Mitchell what he wants to hear, but put my little kind of, twist to it, then you're going to buy into it, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. And then the other thing that they mentioned is that what happens then is when this is all so, for instance, let's just say you've got one person's got this viewpoint, then the rhythm, the algorithm will feel and then give you 100 people with the same. So then you are now connected to 100 people with the same view as you. So there's no challenging what you're saying because everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
So
And so you,
again, yeah, you feed more into it. And then it becomes a certain group of people here, a certain group of people here, and another people here. And then it starts to go the fragmentation. And then again, it's, well, we're right there. It's the thing that I found quite amazing was they said if you was to type something in Google, let's say in the UK, type it in China, type it in wherever, in all these
yeah.
different places, the same thing, you would get a different answer, a result different. So global warming, that would come up here as, oh, it's not, let's say, oh, it's not such a big deal. In America, it might be, oh, we need to do more. And so it's different wherever you're stationed, wherever you're based. I found that really interesting.
Well, I'll tell you something else. If you are looking for a plane ticket or a camera or something and you plug it into a site, you'll get a price. And if I plug it in and they know that I'm a camera buff, then I'll get a higher price because they know I like cameras more than you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you're not quite sure and you come back again, the price will be different as well because they know now that you're more interested in it than the first time. Let's go over to a couple of people who are watching. So we've got here Norman Evans coming in saying there is a digital shadow following our move. Yeah, it does seem like that, Norman. Thanks for writing in. And Sheila saying, hello, gentlemen. She's becoming a bit of a fan. So that's great to have you on the show, Sheila. Cindy coming in saying, fascinating subject indeed. It is quite thrilling, actually, and a little bit kind of scary, I think. Another Facebook user saying the internet is the natural state of the future. The internet is the electricity of the information age. The shift is from industrial age to space age, from analog to digital, from citizen to digital citizen consumer. Yeah, I mean, that's very philosophical, but absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's definitely here to stay. And with the Internet of Things, everything that we're kind of touching and connecting to, and maybe cars will be, vehicles will be connected to the internet, and you just plug into your Google Maps where you want to go and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're basically living in this age. But I think our question tonight is, yeah, we've been manipulated in the past. I mean, even, universities, there are universities that are manipulating us maybe to believe and to think in a certain way, maybe more now than they used to. I don't know. Because universities are also financial organizations now, right? So they have to make money. And so maybe there's a certain manipulation on what subjects are available and what not. I don't know. The old saying, that religion is the opium of the masses. So that was, always put forward as a manipulation of the masses. There's soap operas on television, are rumored to be that kind of opium to get the masses involved with daily television shows, and so they're not, taking part in public square debates.
But do you think, if you think about it, let's just go back. If we went back further, let's say when newspapers first came out. So probably when newspapers first came out, they had a big influence on people because what was written and what we read, or what people read, was what they believed. What they were reading was true.
Yeah.
And then when TV came out, that influenced people in a different way. Film, there's always been, I think they used to say that years and years ago when people used to go to the cinema, there was some kind of subliminal kind of messaging being pushed out. That's who knows? But so we've gone from, let's say, the written word to film to TV. And now we've gone to the next stage in the evolution, which is it went from the internet, social media, and it's just consistently growing and changing, but it's still the same thing. There's still people from a journalist taking a report about something would influence how people saw something, or a bit like very similar to, I guess, in a court where someone's defending someone, influence the jury.
Yeah. What
You
is
know,
what is the antidote in your mind? What is the protection against manipulation? Right. So we've just mentioned all the different channels. You just went through a whole list, but basically all through history, there are different channels according to the era we live in. And one of the viewers said we're now in the internet digital age. It's just another version, another channel of doing the same thing.
Yep.
What, in your opinion, is the antidote to being manipulated on a mass scale?
Gosh, the antidote. First and foremost, check the facts. Research. Do your own research as much as you possibly can. Just research, because at least that way then you're not just being blanketed by, let's just say something comes up and sits in front of you. You look at it and go, okay, that's it. I would then, from what I do myself, I just do a little bits of research as much as I possibly can. Because I don't know really. I think if there was an answer, I mean, I think I think in the States it's been taken to Congress. All this around the social network and all this stuff and how it's influencing and how it's causing problems. And I think it's probably down to the people that are providing us or providing the whole network to look at things from a different way. Because of course, it's useful, but also to protect. If the people that have designed it are not allowing their children to use it, that says a lot. It's a bit like saying, everyone take this medication. This is what you need to take, and then not giving it to your own family. That would jump out and go alarm bells.
Right.
So, but I don't know the answer though, Dove.
You're saying is always double check is what you're saying.
Well, not even double, just as much as you possibly can do, because who knows what you're checking if that's correct. It's very difficult.
Yeah, isn't it?
So
you don't.
You don't know. So I guess really, I wish I had the answer, because if we did have the answer, I am sure someone would grab us both and say to us, come to this company. And because I don't know the answers, I think it's something that needs to be looked into very, very deeply and researched.
Yeah. I think, without blowing our own trumpet, as an example, I think this is it. Is for me, we don't have a perfect solution or antidote. We're talking about human behavior here. So too much regulation I don't like, because then the regulators, who's regulating the regulators, right? So you have to be careful there. So what I think at the end of the day is probably the best that we've got in a system that's flawed, if you like, is discussion, is democratic, freedom of speech, so that we can all meet in the public square and have a debate. Now, that debate has to be regulated from the point of view of, so that we don't start, hurting one another. But to have the debate, to have the ability to come on now and talk to the world, whoever is watching this, and say, look, we're asking a question here. We're bringing to the surface something that's troubling. And all we're saying is join in the debate. What do you think? How do you go about? We're warning people. We're bringing to becoming more aware that maybe you shouldn't just take everything on face value. You don't have to become paranoid, and not trust anybody and so on. But on the other hand, don't be taken in too easily, and maybe, just like you say, check things, talk to other people. I like to hear other people's opinions. I might not agree with them, but to hear them.
But that's what's important, I think, because when you're on social media and you're caught up in a group of people that are going to solely agree with you, it's a bit like if you're thinking about an addiction or something like that, or a habit. When you consistently do a habit, it is a habit. But when you become aware of the habit, it brings it into the forefront. So you then are about accountability. It's about the accountability. So at least if you bring it into the forefront and you can see it there. So for instance, I don't know, you like red, I like blue. And I'm sitting with all the blue people and you're sitting with all the red people. And me and you have a discussion. At least we're open to the discussion, to explore. And at some point during that conversation, I might actually turn around and say, actually, no, red's okay. It might not be my favorite, but red is okay. And otherwise you're just stuck in this cycle of doing the same thing, agreeing with the same thing. You need that diversity, always that diversity.
So as we come to the close of this week's episode, what I'm hearing from you is that within the diversity, there is a little bit of manipulation that might be allowed in order to convince others of different opinions and different things that are going on. We have our Facebook users saying, don't provoke and don't be provoked. Best to be neutral and observant. Yeah, but I'm going to throw out to that Facebook user that by you saying that, you're trying to influence that us and others by saying, maybe that's your opinion and the best way to operate. And that in itself has a certain influence to it. I think as human beings, we're always influencing. We're influencing the way we dress.
Yeah.
We're influencing the way we talk. We're influencing in the way we behave in general. And that we cannot prevent others being influenced by our behavior. And so I think at the end of the day, we need to be aware that we are very powerful influencers. What comes out our mouth, people do listen to. What the way we behave, people do respond to. And if I think there's any message that, if I was closing off tonight with a message is be aware of how much we are as individuals manipulating and or influencing our own personal surroundings. So be aware and careful of that. How would you finish off tonight's episode?
I would say, don't be rigid like an oak tree. I would say, be a bit more flexible like a palm tree. That way you can bend a bit. Otherwise, if you're too rigid, you end up snapping. So at least it gives you that bit where you can sort of sway from here to there, be a bit flexible. I guess that's where I'd leave it.
Wonderful. So flexible and aware. It's been good. This is it. Cheers, Mitchell. Hopefully we'll see you in Inessa next week. Last week you weren't here. This week she's not here. That's the way it goes. It's not a dress rehearsal. This is it.
Take care, Dove, and it's been great talking to you as always. See you later.
Take care. Bye now.